the first speaker, who is Barbara Lott Holland, and I'm going to read her bio briefly, or at least an excerpt from it. Actually, no, it's a good one. Okay, so Barbara Lott Holland is an organizer for the Labor Community Strategy Center and Bus Riders Union, and is the Bus Riders Union co-chair. The Bus Riders Union has been recognized nationally for its historic civil rights consent decree and signature creative tactics over the past 22 years. The Bus Riders Union has become the country's largest grassroots mass transit advocacy organization. An active member since 1996, Ms. Lott Holland is the chair of the monthly membership meeting and elected member of the Bus Riders Union Planning Committee and sits on the Community Rights Steering Committee. In addition to her work with the Bus Riders Union, Barbara was also a delegate to the UN World Conference on Sustainable Development in 2001. Barbara represented the Labor Community Strategy Center at the U.S. Social Forums in 2007 and 2010. She was a delegate at the Bus Riders Union Transportation Conference in 2005, and Barbara has also worked in Washington, D.C. as a representative for the Transit Riders for Public Transportation, the Bus Riders Union National Transit Coalition. So we feel very fortunate to have Barbara with us today. We look forward to hearing her presentation. Let me put it up, and then you can do the slides. Okay, here you go.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Los Angeles, for those of you that do not live here. Unfortunately, we are considered the car capital of this country, sadly. Okay, well, I guess I'm going to have to hold this. Thank you. So as this slide is opening up, it's saying clean air, clean lawn, clean buses. And this is from this has a historical background for us. As Jackie mentioned, I am a part of the Labor Community Strategy Center, which is a think tank, action tank, and it has been around for 22 years. The Bus Riders Union, which is one of its, well, it is its flagship project, has been around for 15 years. We have the Bus Riders Union, which we are known mostly for, as she said, fighting for a first-class bus system. We have our Community Rights Campaign, which is also fighting to break the school-to-prison pipeline. Right now here in Los Angeles, we are fighting to decriminalize our Black and brown students in the public school system and trying to do away with a municipal code, 4504, that criminalizes our youth for being late to school. Not that they didn't get there, but they were late. Tickets starting at $250. We also have our public Transit Riders for Public Transportation, which is fighting for more funds to be put into mass transportation, trying to flip that flip the bill for the Highway Surface Transportation Act, which is now at $500 billion. It's 80% for highways and construction and 20% for mass transit. We also have our Clean Lawns, Clean Air, Clean Buses campaign, which is the one that I'm going to speak to you on today. As I said, we are part of the Labor Community Strategy Center, and climate justice has been one of our issues for some time. We started working with Wilmington trying to get rid of the Texaco plants that was there. That was a really big project, and of course we have families that homes were there, and the struggle, we first got our introduction as to how it is trying to fight big business. So, and from that we started the Bus Riders Union, which was an environmental justice campaign to win a first-class transit system. And as we say, if you have a transit system that works and gets the poor and people of low income where they need to go, everyone benefits from it. And that is the way that we look at all our projects. We start with the neediest and understanding that if we fight for the neediest, everyone benefits from that. From this campaign, which we sued the MTA for transit racism because they were taking money out of the buses and building rail for the more affluent areas. And I think everyone here has probably seen this in your cities. It's happening in Detroit, Atlanta, all over, where they are defunding the buses and moving it toward high rail. Within this fight, as I said, we had a 10-year consent decree. We had over 500 expansion of buses. $1 million went back into service for the transit dependent, meaning that over an 8-year period, we were able to maintain the fares. We were able to maintain the fare for over 8 years. Right now, Los Angeles still has some of the lowest fares in the country. We fought and won a bus fleet that was transferred from diesel to CNG buses. And at the time, that was the most cleanest fuel. We have now learned from that we need to get out of the CNG, but that is another fight. We got $2.7 billion improvements over the bus system. And right now, after the 10 years, we are fighting to maintain those goals that we want. So, having said that, and knowing that environmental justice was something that we had been working for, we moved even forward into it after the 2002 World Summit on Sustainable Development, going to Johannesburg and seeing people from all over the world. One of the things that really stood out for me is when they found out that you were from the U.S., the first question is, what are you going to do about your President Bush? It was always, what are you going to do? When are you going to get Bush out of office? As we saw the deterioration of the third world and the rising waters, the inability for people to continue to maintain their families on lands that had been given to them over centuries ago. They no longer had clean water to drink, which was another interesting thing for me in Johannesburg to see that when we visited the township like Alexandria and Soweto, they had this faucet that was like in the center of the town and it dripped water. And this was the whole community source of fresh water. And people were standing in line with buckets, waiting for their bucket to fill with water. And this is how they got the water. And the city's response was, well, you know, they can't afford it. How it is that we, in order to survive, we need clean air and water. And yet people are being deprived of this because of their inability to pay. And yet when we went into the central city, you were in a restaurant, they were overflowing with water, fountains with water just gushing out of it. And yet people are struggling for water to survive. That really, really made an impression on me, as well as the entire group that was there. So we come back to the LA and understanding what global warming, have a better picture of what global warming means, what it is, the climate control, the change in the climate and what it meant to us. And so it did challenge us as to what could we do to effectively put a dent or effectively show that there is a way to preserve our air and our lungs. So the challenge to us was the dominance of auto and car-driven policies in Los Angeles. As you may or may not know, LA was designed around the car. And so our objective of this was putting public health, the mobility needs of the working class at the center of transportation policies. And as I said, if you put the working class and the mobility needs of the people at the center, everyone prospers from this. Making LA accountable to the third world nations and people most devastated by global warming and climate change. Reducing LA's greenhouse gases emissions by 1/2. These were the challenges that we put on ourselves and that we felt was needed. This again is some of the Clean Air Campaign demands which I went over. Another thing that we're working on, as we've seen done in other countries, is auto-free zones, moratorium on freeways and rail expansions. And what is driven by the pollution? Looking at the big picture of LA, it's a total area of 4,060 square miles. The population is over 9 million people, 650 miles of freeways. One of the interesting things that I learned too is that here in LA, 2/3 of our land use is dedicated to cars, be it the freeways, the streets, the parking lots, and the 100 of parking lots with tons of cars for sale. That to me was really, really interesting. I'm gonna skip this for time. And so this picture here depicts what actually our lungs look like every time we breathe the air here in Los Angeles. And I'm sure it can be seen from other places as well. Our lungs are full with the emissions from cars. And one of the things that was interesting to me, a lot of people talk about lung disease and what happens to your lungs, but also congestive heart failure can also be contributed through the pollution in the air. So our black and brown communities, as has been mentioned, is more likely to die from asthma. Latinos, 40% of the population of Los Angeles, the Latinos are 40% of the population of Los Angeles, but 60% of them live in adjacent pollution factories. How can that be? So there are 132 toxin various sites here in Los Angeles. Freeways and truck rights has little or no green space. 40% of blacks and 55% of Latinos working class residents that where these refineries and things are. Let's see what this one is. These are large, and the other thing is these are large transit-dependent communities, meaning these are people that depend on public transportation. And as you can see, the interchange of freeways and stuff that's here in Los Angeles, we spend a lot of money on freeways after freeways. And there's more and more cars is on these freeways. So it's how to stop the addiction to cars here in LA. And as you can see, this slide shows what it looks like here on your left. I guess it's the left, and what we envision on the right. A lot of green space, more air for us to breathe. These are the things that we are trying to do here in Los Angeles. And these are just some examples of lessons learned from other worlds. As you say, people will say, well, Los Angeles is so big, it's huge, and it's over, 7 million people here, but yet we see like in Bogota, Colombia, they have 7 million people, and yet they were able to provide green spaces and auto-free zones. So it can happen here in Los Angeles. Another example is in Seoul, Korea, where there are 10 million people, and yet they were able to convert this freeway into a green space, as you see on the right side. So again, this is our Clean Air and Economic Justice Plan to expand the peak hours of more buses, less cars on our freeway, reversing the 2007 fare increase, and expanding night and weekend service for people that are transit dependent, and $150 million for bus-only lane program. And yes, a bus-only lane we feel is a first start to moving LA to restricting the automobile, giving more green space in here, and allowing massive public transportation. 5 reasons for a bus-only lane is mobility of Black and Latino and API bus riders, a better use of space capacity to move people, implement quickly and relatively at low cost, and attract new riders onto the bus system. If it works, and the first-class bus system means that it's running 24/7, it takes people to the places that they need to go, and you don't have to wait an hour or 30 minutes in order to get there. And it's limiting the auto space and encouraging people to get out of their cars. So I'm going to move forward, and I want to end this slide with saying we do have a victory. We have received $23 million from the federal government to create our first bus-only lane in Los Angeles, and we're hoping that will be in reality in the year 2013. Thank you.